So the Web 8 matrix is a consumption layer of the web, and its architecture is made of standard infrastructure and a value ecosystem. Infrastructure has the matrix cloud that stores the data of the matrix, the hovercraft, which store the components that modify the matrix, and the matrix browser used by end users to browse the matrix. The ecosystem consists of the matrix service providers that host the hovercrafts and the building servers, the web content adds and API vendors, which also play a part of the matrix by providing the underlying feeds and APIs, and training courses developers that develop and offer the training courses for resident hackers to teach them how to process feeds. Let's look at each one of them briefly. So the matrix cloud is used to store and serve the data of the matrix, and it uses a component called building server. So a building server holds the data of a building. Since buildings can have nested buildings inside them, these are also stored on a building server, or there can be child building servers that register to hold the data of nested buildings. So when serving nested buildings, building servers delegate to the registered child building servers holding the data of the nested buildings. The root building server is the one holding the data for the ground floor. Besides holding and serving data, building servers also perform maintenance of the buildings. So that's an explanation of the Matrix Cloud. It's basically a global hierarchy of building servers. Second piece are the Matrix hovercrafts. So the data in the matrix is constantly modified by resident hackers and data pipes. So data pipes stream users' content feeds into the matrix, while resident hackers process the content feeds. So to power these, we need the matrix hovercrafts, special software that run the data pipes and the resident hackers. So if the web has a web browser and a web server, the matrix has a matrix browser, a building server, and the matrix hovercraft, which also pulls data from web servers. So one difference is that while in the web, users needed just a web browser to access the web, in the matrix, they also need the matrix hovercraft to do the processing for them. So the matrix hovercraft connect the resident hackers and the data pipes to the matrix cloud. And it also provides them with scheduling and other processing resources. So users pay something called the matrix service provider for hosting matrix hovercrafts for them. Another option is they can just download and run hovercraft on their own machine for free. So these are the matrix hovercrafts that power the data pipes and resident hackers that modify the matrix. Finally, we have the matrix browser, which is a 3D VR app running on any device. So to use the Web 8 matrix, you need to browse through the organized spaces. And since the matrix is based on a city-like spatial model, you best view it as a 3D representation of that model. So for example, you can specify the address of some nested building and you see the organized spaces inside that building. And you can also access the data of nested building inside that organized space as regular web content. So each user has its own building in the matrix for storing its data. and the ground floor of that building contains buildings per every day. By default, the matrix browser will open in today's building and present the organized spaces per every content feed the user subscribed to, for example, email, Slack, Twitter, etc. So that's the matrix browser, the end-user software to browse the matrix. But let's look at the ecosystem. So we start with the matrix service providers. So today, to access the web, users pay every month to multiple internet service providers for the data plans. Similarly, to effectively consume the web using the matrix, users will pay every month to matrix service providers. The payment will be according to the size of the matrix hovercraft. The bigger the hovercraft, the more content feeds the user can process. The matrix service providers will need to be certified by the organization that controls and guides the WebRite matrix. And to get certified, they will need to also register and maintain at least one building server. So the cost of hosting the Matrix Cloud will be distributed among the Matrix service providers. So these are the Matrix service providers that run the building servers and host the hovercrafts of the Matrix. Another piece of the ecosystem are the web content ads and API vendors. So the WebRite matrix is building on the content feeds from the web and on the APIs for accessing and processing those content feeds. So for this reason, the vendors of these content feeds and ads and APIs need to be part of the ecosystem. So for example, whenever the content or API vendors charge fee for the content or the API, there will be two possible ways to pay for that fee. One is using ads that can be integrated inside the organized space and provide revenue to the content and API vendors. Or through purchase, the users can pay inside the unorganized space to some content or some APIs directly to the vendors of them. And finally, we have the training courses developers. So anyone will be able to develop training courses that define how to convert a certain type of content feed into an organized space. The courses will be offered in a store, either for free or for money. So the organized spaces are intended to become the way to consume the web. It's a kind of a door to access the web, and as such it has a high economic value. This means that developers of these training courses that define the organized spaces will compete on having the most popular organized spaces, and thus resulting in better value for the users. So these are the training courses developers.